Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Revolutionizing Sales with Copilot. My name is Elisa and I'm today's host. On behalf of LBMC Technology Solution, today's speaker and myself, I'd like to thank you all for joining. I have just a few housekeeping items to go over before we get started. All lines have been muted to reduce background noise. If you experience any technical difficulties, please let us know by using the chat panel below. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation and will answer them during the last 10 to 15 minutes of today's session. After today's event, you will be receiving an email with the slides from today's presentation and the recording. At LBMC Technology Solutions, our aim is to be your team for everything tech. If you think of a technology challenge or need, please drop it in the chat, Q&A, or send us an email at info@lbmctech.com. Now, please help me welcome our presenter for today's webinar, Jason Barnes. Jason joined LBMC Technology Solutions over 8 years ago and has more than 22 years of experience in technology, specializing in CRM, Microsoft Power Platform, as well as solution consulting and architecture. Now, Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. So good morning, everybody. We certainly appreciate everyone taking time out of your busy day to join us. We're going to talk about Copilot, and I'm very excited about it. I've been in the software business for about 22 years, and honestly, I can say this is probably my officially top 3 new release for me. But one thing everyone should keep in mind is that this is first generation tech, but I do truly believe that what Microsoft has planned for Copilot is truly going to revolutionize the way we interact with our software. So before we dive in, for those of you who are not familiar with LBMC Technology Solutions, we are actually one of 9 different LBMC companies. The LBMC PC started back as a tax and audit firm in 1984 and essentially grown from there. The technology practice was formed around 1996, and we've essentially been helping clients ever since, about 27 years, I believe. We're headquartered here in Nashville. We have multiple offices in Tennessee and North Carolina, but we have, I think, over 120 team members now located throughout the country. So we're get that sprawl going. We do provide a wide range of services and support as a technology solutions provider. We can help you manage your IT network administration needs, or we can help you implement some different ERP or accounting systems. My team can help you with your CRM, marketing, or low-code app development and automation needs. But one thing I'd like to point out, though, is we do have a really outstanding team here at LBMC. We work really hard to deliver the best possible services and solutions we can to our clients. But of course, we couldn't do that without some great partners as well. So I'd like to mention the fact that our top partners here are Microsoft, Sage, and Highland. So with that, let's get started with our session today. So let's talk about our objectives. Every time we do one of these events, I like to make sure that we've got our kind of eye on specific objectives here. So number one, we're going to talk about some of the business drivers behind Microsoft's development of Copilot, maybe some of the factors they were considering as they did so. Give you a definition of what Copilot for Sales is. Always helps to have a good definition. Of course, probably most important is we're going to talk about how it can help your teams close more business, right? And we'll talk about, of course, where Copilot has been intertwined and sort of introduced into the ecosystem. And then, of course, I'm sure everybody's looking forward to seeing an actual demonstration, seeing this thing live. So I think it's going to be a pretty compelling demo. It's going to be good stuff. So let's talk about what might have motivated Microsoft to develop Copilot to begin with and bring it to market. Well, remember one thing: AI is actually nothing new. It's been sprinkled into some prior business applications for years now. But what we have here is something special. First of all, I mean, it is 2024, right? So our businesses have huge amounts of data now. I mean, we collect it all over the place, right? But if you think about it, we have very few tools that can really help us parse that data, and certainly nothing that can take that data and present it to us in a way is intelligence that we can kind of use every day really every hour as we engage with customers, right? So we needed something that brings the data to us, not necessarily bringing us to the data, like with links and integrations and whatnot, right? So second, despite having all these advanced CRMs and sales tools, some businesses are still seeing lead conversion and win rates, and really the amount of any meaningful sales activity continue to drop, right? So there's a problem. Sales users needed a true AI assistant, not just AI sprinkled in. They needed a true AI assistant to help them make use of all of this data and really make it, or be able to use it in ways that make them more productive, and able to work more opportunities, and of course, close business and respond to customers faster, right? So this new AI assistant tool could revolutionize sales, especially during sales engagements when using productivity apps like Outlook, Teams, and CRM, of course. So Microsoft put together a focus group with some sales professionals, and of course they asked them a few questions. Number one, what prevents them from being more productive, right? And so a couple of numbers that stand out here, in my opinion, are that 90% of those who participated in that said that simpler ways to automate tasks would allow them to focus on building, their pipeline and closing more deals, right? 84% said that technology that would make customer information more easily accessible would allow them to focus more on the same, right? So simpler, easier. Simpler, easier. Sounds common theme, right? So as we get started here, I'd like to go ahead and conduct a quick little question, a little poll here, just to kind of figure out where everybody's at. So this will pop up here shortly. If everybody can provide an answer. Real simple. What CRM application do you or your sales team use?
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. The poll questions are not popping up. And so if you would take the time to just jot your answer down in the chat, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes. All right. Should be either, for the folks that are in this audience, probably Dynamics 365 CRM or Salesforce, or it could be HubSpot, or, really any other. So just make note. Or my favorite answer to that question is sometimes Excel. And I kind of chuckle with that. All right, so let's talk about Copilot for Sales. First, what is Copilot for Sales? So I'm going to give you a pretty specific definition here. Microsoft Copilot for Sales is an intelligent AI-supported tool designed to enhance sales productivity and effectiveness. That's Microsoft's definition. Really, Copilot for Sales, what it does is we're combining AI-driven insights, automation, and contextual awareness to empower sales professionals to improve their efficiency throughout the sales cycle. Okay, so it's a sales tool, no surprise, right? But more importantly, let's talk about how it actually works. So specifically, Copilot for Sales uses what's called a generative AI model, and it's integrated with tools like we mentioned earlier, like Outlook, Teams, and Dynamics 365, or maybe even Salesforce. And what it does is it actually analyzes communication, and more specifically communication patterns. It looks at customer interactions and historical data such as sales data, and provides real-time suggestions and data summaries where the user is using their productivity apps, again, like Outlook, Teams, or Dynamics. So for example, when a salesperson creates an email in Outlook, Copilot will offer content, right? Such as product information, customer information, opportunity details, and even follow-up suggestions based on the contact of the message, or context of the message, excuse me, such as their actual pricing. So there's the ability to actually reply to an inquiry, and it will detect the product that the client or the customer is asking about and make suggestions of pricing to include in that response. So that's pretty impressive. Of course, it's also important to note that Copilot is not just for sales teams. So the possible use cases for Copilot, it actually spans the whole organization, from sales to marketing, customer service to finance, and even supply chain. So, as we talk about the capabilities and, these benefits of Copilot for sales today, keep in mind that AI assistants will be available throughout the Microsoft 365 and the Dynamics 365 stack. So I wanted to show you this as well. This is a more comprehensive list. And take a look at the availability, which includes apps and tools such as Microsoft Office, Power Platform. So all of those low-code tools that we've been talking to you guys about for a few months now, probably 6 months or more. Field service, project operations, and even accounting systems such as Business Central or F&O, or Finance and Operations, they call it. There's also, not to mention, a new low-code tool that they've introduced called Copilot Studio, which will allow businesses basically to develop their own AI models. So you can create things and tools such as chatbots, but not just any chatbot. We're talking chatbots that use natural language support. So this is just a partial list. The true list is probably double this, but they've essentially intertwined Copilot into everything. All right, so I think we're going to have another quick question, a poll question pop up here before we get diving into more specifics of Copilot. So
Yes,
what
and it
sales stacks
looks
do you
like,
find most consuming?
my apologies, it looks like we're also having technical difficulties with the chat for participants. So if you would kindly put your answers in the Q&A, that function seems to be working. I will place the options to the poll question number 2 in the chat for you to read.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, we'll give everybody a minute or so to do that. All right, so I see some chats coming in there. All right, so let's keep moving. So how can Copilot help me or my team close more business? So first of all, Copilot is going to help streamline some of those sort of mundane and repetitive tasks, really the time-consuming stuff that sellers do, such as updating, CRM or sales documentation, or preparing for meetings, writing emails, and of course that's going to allow them to focus more on closing business. So it can also help by collecting, analyzing, and really better predicting buyer behavior, which is something that AI is very good at. But ultimately, Copilot's going to help sellers gain that insight into the customer's needs and even preferences, right? So that's going to allow them to engage with the buyer more effectively. They're not having to do as much guesswork or really homework, having to reach out and try to find all this information and bring it together. It'll be presented to them as the idea. So Copilot's going to assist sellers too by presenting the relevant customer details during client engagement. So that obviously will enable sellers to provide a more personalized experience, because there's going to be notes and comments and activity, email history that Copilot will leverage to present some meaningful information when you're engaging with customers, email or phone calls, meetings, etc. And then, of course, with Copilot's assistance, sellers can maintain their CRM data, right? Or they can, in general, just keep data accurate and up to date. Obviously, that'll lead to better sales decisions, improved customer interactions, right? Especially helpful in maintaining that data accuracy that is always a challenge in CRM, right? So this is certainly another tool that'll help us with our data accuracy. Copilot also is going to integrate and collaborate with all those productivity tools we've been talking about, CRM, Outlook, and Teams, which obviously allow sellers to work more, efficiently, and they have that access to sales insights within all of their daily workflow, no matter what app they're in, right? So where can I use Copilot for sales? Well, we've been talking about it, so it shouldn't be a surprise. So as salespeople, where can we use Copilot? Well, in the top three, most commonly used sales productivity apps. That's Outlook, Teams, and CRM. So if you think about it, in other words, it's where we communicate with our customers, where we meet with our customers, and of course, where we manage our sales engagement. So makes sense, right? So let's start with Outlook. The most common theme here is data and really time savings and being more efficient, right? So I don't know about you, but if you've ever spent 30 minutes composing an email that you just couldn't get right, I mean, this happens to me all the time. I'll spend way too much trying to compose an email that I just can't get the context or the tone the way I want it, and it just takes up too much time, right? So the idea is Copilot to the rescue. It's going to help me with that. It's also going to help when composing emails. It will assist sellers by summarizing information about an opportunity or a customer, suggesting content, and it may even helping you craft the email or the response, more quickly. So that's certainly a time saver. And of course, it's going to automate those repetitive Outlook tasks, like drafting the emails and scheduling meetings. That's an exciting one where it'll actually look at your calendar and suggest the next possible available date as you go to suggest a call or a meeting with the client. So that's pretty helpful. We'll see that here shortly. And then, of course, create reminders. So, as an example, if a lead expresses interest, Copilot can suggest like a follow-up call or even sending an initial proposal or estimate. So that's going to be certainly a huge time saver for most. Additionally, Copilot's going to streamline your workflow too, though, by enabling those updates to your dynamics, your CRM records, right? Your opportunities, your accounts, contacts, et cetera. But you can do so, directly from Outlook. Very similar to the Outlook app that's out there now, but it's going to do it in more of a streamlined process when you're engaging with the customer in Outlook. So for teams, this is pretty neat. So Copilot is actually going to listen to these sales calls. It's going to listen to these meetings. It's going to transcribe them, which that's nothing new. We've been able to transcribe before. But with Copilot, it's going to extract key information from it, though. It's going to identify, sort of those key moments. They call them like chapters. And, of course, it'll identify objections. So it's detecting sentiment as it does it. And then it'll even generate follow-up or, action items that you would do after the meeting. It does this automatically, right? So that's certainly going to be helpful. The idea is it's going to help the sales reps focus on more critical aspects of the conversation, right? Instead of trying to hit certain points, they in your notes, for example, you don't have to worry about that. It'll do it for you. So think of these as like AI generated meeting summaries, and they're going to, I think, be extremely helpful in documenting sales calls. Capturing key needs and just really key points of discussion. They'll be indexed in such a way that you're going to really be able to parse through that and even extract them as a summary that you can upload to CRM or basically attach, not upload. It's a bad word, right? And so I think all of that could be really vital to closing more deals and certainly going to be a big help. So speaking of deals, though, in more complex sales engagements, where it might take a team of people to bring all of the needed input, the recommendations and costing, pricing together. Well, there's this new concept of deal rooms, right? I love the idea of these because at LBMC, we deal with this all the time. It's a lot of times a team effort. So now with deal rooms, you can create them quickly from Outlook, right? And what that's going to do is allow you to centralize all of the sales insights, the communications, opportunity data, and the documents, right? All the documentation that goes into a sales deal. It's going to put all that in a single place without you having to like proactively go and do it. It will do it for you, right? So this is called a deal room. I want to show you that here in just a little bit. Now, as far as dynamics, of course, CRM, right? So when we're viewing opportunities, our customers in dynamics, Copilot's going to assist you by summarizing information, all the sales activity, all those details that you captured in notes. It's going to help summarize that, which ultimately, is going to help sellers strategize and really plan sort of the next steps in their sales process, a lot quicker. So right now, Copilot connects to CRMs like Salesforce and Dynamics 365. So it's going to pull data from the CRM, such as opportunity details, account history, the stage the deal's in, for example, and provide recommendations with all of that information within Outlook or even Teams, right? So in addition to that, though, it can actually analyze the customer interaction. Now, this is nothing new. This is something that Microsoft introduced a while back. It can analyze the customer interactions, right? But Copilot will go a step further and actually generate additional insights that essentially aggregates additional information with those interactions, right? So that's a totally new thing. It'll identify any trends, the customer sentiment, for example, like what's their temperature, and of course, it'll take all into account any prior sales engagement. So here's an example, if you can highlight which email, if you have like email templates, for example, that you're using, it'll tell you which is the most effective template to use. And then it'll even tell you, like, out of your pipeline, which opportunities are more likely to close at any given time, right? So if all that sounds really awesome, I think we should see it. So give me just a second. I'm going to switch screens and we're going to dive into a demonstration of Copilot for Sales. Give me just 1 second. All right. I think everybody should see that now, I believe. Let's see. Let's do that again. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think we got it. All right, so during our demo today, we're all going to pretend that we're David Mallory, and he's a sales rep with Contoso Coffee. All right, so David manages a pretty large pipeline of customers, and today we're going to kind of follow along with him as David uses Copilot to really increase his productivity and sort of personalize his interactions with a prospect named Alex Baker. So Copilot will help David monitor his pipeline. He's going to prepare for the meeting with Alex, and then he's going to author that email to Alex using Copilot, right? So, and at the same time, he'll be updating, his CRM customer records as he goes along, right? So in Dynamics, David has a few opportunities with upcoming deadlines. You can see that here on the left. So for those of you who are not familiar, this is called Sales Accelerator. Some of you may or may not have this enabled, but this is Sales Accelerator. Might look a little different for some. So what we're going to do is he's going to open the Alex Baker opportunity, so we can see that here. And then we notice that, of course, this is with Alex, the cafeteria manager at Trade Research. So what we're going to do now is we're going to launch Copilot. So to launch Copilot, it is extremely easy. You'll see this little Copilot icon. You're going to see this sprinkled in everywhere throughout all of the Copilot enabled applications. So you can see over here on the right, I have essentially like what you might call like a chat window. And if it's the first time that you're loading Copilot, you'll see a few startup screens. And if it's your first time using Copilot, you'll see a try Copilot option. So let's just kind of click through that and I'll show you what I mean. So again, it's just sort of giving you a few pointers or a few points about Copilot. But ultimately, when you get to this try Copilot screen, that's what we're looking for. And it should only ask you this once. All right. So honestly, this is one of my favorite features of Copilot in Dynamics, and that's these opportunity summaries. So if you can look at the detail here, this is pretty impressive stuff, right? So in this case, he's going to use Copilot. He's going to view a summary of the opportunity, and the idea is that he's catching up on past activities, right? This summary is going to include, if you look at this, it includes customer details, and any interest, past discussion points, what stage the deal is in, and then any past, relationship activity there. So all of that is summarized in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and click. If you look on the right here, what I can also do is if I want to learn a little bit about, this client, maybe what's going on across the web there, I can actually ask Copilot to show me that. So show latest news here. And you can see it's going to think about it for just a second, but down at the bottom. So these are some latest news and events about Trade Research. So it's gone out, it's looking both internally and externally, looking for any recent events. So keep in mind that this is a fictional company. This is a demo environment. So Obviously, it didn't really find a whole lot, just a few basic things here. But obviously, I could also, if I wanted to, go out and view this list on Bing or on my browser, and could dive into some more specific articles and details. Again, that's all good information when you're following up with a customer, right? So maybe they had a big win or they were in the press about something positive, let's hope. You can obviously bring that right up, and that's a great conversation starter when you're following up with a prospect. All right. So now David can use Copilot to help him prepare for a follow-up meeting with Alex, right? So he's ready to follow up with Alex. It's time for us to respond to her or to follow up with her on this opportunity. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say prepare for meeting. So if everybody can see this, my little chat window down here at the bottom. So I have some options here. These are predefined Copilot suggestions. This is not all you can do. You can type in anything. You can ask it a question or a request for it to summarize something, and it can do that. I could just as easily say, hey, summarize my last 5 emails with this customer. And it will provide a summary of my last 5 emails or however many emails that I've had with this customer. But again, we're playing along with David, so I'm just going to go ahead and say we're preparing for a meeting. So again, it's going to think for a second. All right, and it's going to respond by saying, here are some points to consider for your upcoming meeting. And that meeting title is Discuss the New Proposal, right? So Copilot already knows you have a scheduled meeting with Alex. You don't have to tell it that. It already knows that. It has access to that information. So it's going to say, all right, so if we're talking based on this meeting, it's going to suggest a couple of talking points, right? They've been a customer of Contoso Coffee for 3 years, right? They've always been interested in sustainability. They focus on ethical sourcing and organic coffee, right? So these are things based on notes, based on details that we've captured in the system. It's not just making this up. It's deriving this from information that's in the environment. So pretty impressive stuff. And again, this is just click of the button type of thing. So next, so as you can see, like I said, it's going to provide those preparation type notes, summary of the past meetings. And so now that David is sort of caught up, we're going to go ahead and pretend like he's going to reach out to Alex, right, to follow up and have some additional dialogue with her. So I'm going to go ahead and launch my Outlook. So you can see this should look fairly familiar with everybody. This is Outlook. I think, of course, this is the new interface or the new look. It does work in the older Outlook interface, so don't worry. It's not, certainly not the only version that you can use Copilot in, so nobody worry about that. But anyway, so back to our role play here. So a few days later, after he's had some discussion, David receives an email after that meeting, I should say, he had with Alex. He receives an email from Alex, right, asking for more information about the Cafe, A100 automatic coffee maker that David mentioned during the meeting, right? So David's going to reply to Alex. So just like I would any other email, over here on the right, I'm going to hit my reply icon. And what that's going to do is bring up my usual, response window. Again, this is the new look Outlook, so it might look a little bit different than you're used to in some of the older Outlook clients. But you notice that it says, hey, you want to use Copilot to generate your reply? I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to use Copilot now. So as you can imagine, that's going to load Copilot, and it's going to give me some options, right? So Copilot is going to summarize this email from Alex with information that David, of course, could use in the reply, right? So if you see the summary, she expressed interest in the Cafe A100 automatic coffee maker. She requested specs and a price sheet to evaluate compatibility with her budget, right? She requested expedited order process due to an urgent need. Alex inquired about the possibility of adding a touchless app-driven interface. Wow, okay, that's a fancy coffee maker, right? But the one thing I want to point out, check this out, save summary, okay? Where do we think that summary would go? Yes, you're right. That's going to go to CRM. So I don't have to necessarily attach the email, the original email that came in, right? Because then somebody still has to parse through that email to or read the email, of course, to understand what was in it. Okay. Well, the idea is with the summary, you don't have to do that. You can look it over, and if it looks accurate, just save that summary to CRM and you're done, right? So obviously a pretty helpful feature there, in my opinion. Now, we want to respond to Alex. Again, that was our next step. So when we respond to Alex, you can see under my draft with Copilot option at the top, I have an option to reply to an inquiry. Okay, that sounds interesting. I think I'll try it. So I'm going to hit reply to an inquiry. And Copilot, without me doing anything, is going to suggest an email, reply, right? With the right information, of course, but David wants to keep the email short, right? So this is a pretty long response that Copilot's come up with, okay? So let's say, my conversations with Alex have been pretty informal. She's pretty easygoing. I don't have to be so formal per se. So I'm going to shorten this message. I'm going to tell Copilot, hey, shorten the length of the email, right? And so it's going to turn around and regenerate it with a shortened version. Give it a second to do that. There's our shortened version, right? But you know what? David, when he reads the example here, he's like, the tone still sounds too formal. That's just not my style. Again, I have a really good rapport going with Alex, so I can keep it, a little more friendly, right? So I'm going to tell Copilot to make my response a little more friendly. So again, I'm not typing any of this. Copilot is taking the context of the prior email along with the context of the opportunity that I have for Alex that's being tracked in CRM, okay? And it's going to pull this information into my response. So I took the original response, shortened it, and made it more friendly. Yeah, if you'll notice here, it contains all the pertinent details, right? And this is going to have a lot of people jumping out of their seat, I think. Look down here at the bottom. Would it be possible to have a conversation about this on Friday, the 23rd at 8 a.m.? Where do we think it got that from? Yep, it looked at your Outlook calendar and it said, oh, it looks like your next availability will be Friday the 23rd at 8 o'clock. It will also take a look at your prior activity history with that contact. And if you had a meeting every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, it will notice that and it will suggest that meeting time, right? If it's available. Okay. So I think that alone is worth the price of admission. I know when I engage with clients, just having the ability for something to look at my schedule for me and tell me when I'm available and automatically throw that into the email for me, that's a huge win in my opinion. So, all right. So I like this email. I'm going to go ahead and copy this into my email. So I just click the little button down here at the bottom, copy to email. There we go. So I have copied my email into the response there, and I'm just going to click send. Boom. So I've just sent that communication off to Alex. Okay. Now, just to show you a couple of quick things with the integration to Dynamics, we can see over here on the right, we have a couple of options. Now, if I still, even though I save the summary, okay, I can still save the full email if I wanted to. You do have that option. But one thing you should always do is create or add a new contact to Dynamics if it doesn't recognize it. So in this situation, Alex actually is already in CRM, but perhaps she used a different email than the system recognized. So you could choose to add this as another contact to CRM, okay? So again, this is just sort of pretending that this was a new inquiry and you really hadn't worked with Alex, just to kind of show you what this looks like. So from here, it will extrapolate the information from the contact that emailed you and of course do it the best it can to populate the data. So first name, last name, email, and account. And then of course, if you know anything else about Alex, like maybe her job title or what have you, or a phone number, you can enter that information there as well, right? Excellent. Good. So I'm going to save that information. So now I've updated everything, and you can see here how it shows where it's connected to. So this message and this person is linked to this opportunity. It shows you access to her contact info and any open opportunities for trade research right here. So this is very similar to the Outlook app. If you've used that historically, then this should be pretty familiar, right? But let's get back to talking about what we had mentioned before, right? In that deal room. What is that? I want to learn more, right? So from Outlook, and I can actually do this from Dynamics as well, but I was just going to show you from Outlook. I can go back to my highlights tab here. And if you look down at the bottom, let's say that, she's asking for, Alex is asking for this fancy, touchless, app-driven interface for a coffee maker, right? I was like, whoa, okay. So I'm gonna have to get other people plugged into this, project or this opportunity because I have no idea how to estimate that. So I'm gonna have to kind of bring everybody in. Maybe she sent some documentation about it, right? Like maybe the requirements for what they want that app to do. I don't know. Maybe it's not, maybe it's custom, I should say. So I need to set up a new deal room with my team to go over that. Okay. So real simple. Right at the bottom, I have a collaborating teams option. So I'm going to tell it, I want to set up a deal room. Okay. And it just so happens that in this situation, because Trade Research is an existing customer, I already have them set up as a team in my Microsoft Teams. So I don't need to create a new one because it's not a prospect. They're an existing customer. So they should be in there. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use an existing team. And yep, sure enough, it located, hey, Trade Research is already in here. So I'm just going to highlight Trade Research and I'm going to say next. And then, so it's going to create what we're actually creating. When we say deal room, what we're actually creating is a new channel. But in the channel, it's going to have specific, tabs and things set up so that we can track the opportunity. But we're going to call this a standard in terms of the privacy setting. It would be standard, right? So that the whole team has access to it. All right. And I'm going to say set up team. And so it's going to go through, it's going to talk to Microsoft Teams. It's going to say, all right, your team is ready. And from there, I can go ahead and open that team up. It'll take me straight to that channel. So you can see over here on the left. So I've got maybe a couple of opportunities or deals that I'm working on, right? So in this situation, I can see that I now have my deal room, okay? And then from here, just as an example, I know it's important for, in a lot of sales environments to have that access to documentation. So I can click on files here. There we go. So I have access to my CRM related files, key customer contact data, any presentations or proposals, right? So as an example, but I could obviously store any sales documentation I need right here and the whole team would have access. So I'm assuming most of you are on the meeting today are Teams users. So that's something obviously that would be real helpful in the fact that it's all intertwined and all supported by Copilot. All right. So that's what we have to show you on the demo. And I'm going to jump back. We have a couple of quick remaining points to discuss, and then we'll call the meeting. So just 1 second. I'm going to switch back. All right. Excellent. So let's follow one more question here. I believe everybody may have to use chat for this, but I'd like to know, after we've had a chance to talk about this today, I'd like to know which of these new Copilot features, everyone thinks would be the most helpful. So everybody takes a second. They want to maybe chime in real quick and what they think might be the most helpful. That'd be great. Use that for some discussion here in a minute. All right. All right, everybody continue to do that. But I wanted to speak real quick because I know that there's probably some folks on the session today that are wondering about, oh, okay. So what I hear is there's a lot of my data moving all around the place, right? We're going from CRM and Outlook and Teams. And ultimately, how is that data protected, right? So first, Copilot leverages the same data security model that's being used in your CRM, like in Dynamics 365, for example. So if a user doesn't have access to specific data in CRM, they wouldn't be able to access it or see it through Copilot. All right. So in other words, Copilot doesn't all of a sudden make all this data global. Okay. So it does leverage the security model. So whatever their security roles allow them access to, that's what they would see. Second, I know, I've been speaking a lot about, again, this data is moving back and forth, but, and of course there's 3 applications involved, right? But it is important to note though, that from a data security standpoint, that Copilot supports encryption in transit. We also call that TLS. Again, it uses the same Active Directory authentication that you use for Dynamics and you use for Office and all of your Microsoft applications. So same authentication. And even when the data is not moving or going anywhere, it's actually encrypted, right? So high level security, data model security is fully enforced. So should not be any real concern or any reason for concern on that. All right. So Lisa, I think we have time to open it up perhaps for some Q&A if you have any.
Thank you, Jason. We do have a question. So we're going to begin our Q&A live. If anyone else has further questions about anything that Jason shared and we don't get to your question today, please know that we will reach out to you if you reach out to us via info@lbmctech.com. The first question that's come in today, Jason, is it looks like it only works with Microsoft Edge. Is that correct?
Microsoft, I'm just using Microsoft Edge for the demo today, but no, it'll work with Chrome and Safari as well. That's a good question.
Okay, and then another question is, how would my company purchase subscriptions for Copilot for Sales and how much does it cost?
Okay. So when it comes to pricing or getting subscriptions for Copilot, if you already own Dynamics 365 for Sales Enterprise, okay, you actually already have access to Copilot for Sales. You just have to have the Dynamics 365 for Sales Enterprise version or Premium, right? So if you have those two, you already have access to Copilot. If you have Professional Edition, it is a $20 a user per month difference to get Copilot added to your sales subscriptions, okay? And if you don't have any of that and you just want to start with Copilot for Sales, like maybe you have Salesforce or another CRM, then it would be $50 a user a month. And you can purchase, or subscribe to any of those through LBMC. As a CSP partner, we have access to all the subscriptions and get you signed up.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. One last question. The person wants to know, how long does it take to implement Copilot for Sales?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's another good question. So it's really more about training. However, it's always good to have just a brief sort of, I'd call it like an assessment, right? So we would basically maybe take an hour or two to talk about your environments, because these are with Copilot, the features that I show today, they're all data driven, right? It's highly data driven. So if you, for example, if you're a CRM user or customer and you're not really leveraging activities, or you're not, archiving emails, you're not, maybe using Outlook, the way it's intended. So some of those things, we would discuss first and make sure that sort of like if you stay using your productivity tools, again, Teams, Outlook, and CRM the way you are now, is it a good fit for how Copilot works, right? And if it's not, we can make suggestions on some course correction and some things that will help better align how you're using those 3 applications so that you could leverage Copilot. So there's a little bit of it's not really an implementation. It's more of like just kind of a quick assessment, a little consulting on the front end. And then after that, it's just training. And as you can see, it was pretty easy to pick up. So training, I mean, you're talking like maybe an hour or 2 of training. I like to train a power user, and then that way they can kind of help other users perhaps. But yeah, so implementation is really pretty quick. Good question.
All right, that's all the questions that have come in. Thank you.
All right. Well, one thing I wanted to suggest, and again, speaking of assessments, for anyone that's on the session today, I'm willing myself to offer a free Copilot assessment, right? So we'll go and we'll have that conversation. We will talk about, how you're currently using your CRM, Outlook, and perhaps Teams, and then talk about, if you'd be a good fit for Copilot, or currently, how you're using the system. And then we can also talk about any, things you might consider, updating or start using, for example, activities in CRM to really drive the use of Copilot. So we'll do that for free. Also, just to mention a quick few events here. We're planning on doing an event in April, what we call our automated event. So that will be on Power Automate. We're going to have additional Copilot events. Our next one would be on customer insights. So that is their marketing and data platform. We're going to talk about how the use of Copilot in that system or in that solution. And then we'll likely in Q3 have some additional build it and connected events. So that'll focus on creating low code apps. And then our connected event will be on Dataverse and talking about integrations using Power Platform. So we are planning to host these. Most of these will be live, but there may be some events that are going to be recorded, and we could just put those out there for everybody to sign up for and download. All right. Lisa,
Excellent.
take us home.
We certainly can. And thank you all again for joining us. We hope this webinar on Microsoft Sales Copilot has been informative and valuable to everyone who joined us today. As Jason mentioned, keep an eye out for our first quarterly Build It event in April, plus many other webinars and events, which can be found by searching webinars and events on lbmctech.com. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we do look forward to seeing you at future webinars. If you have any further questions or need guidance on how to get started, our team is always available to support and assist you.